Hi, it's Memorial Day morning, and I'm here in Oakland Cemetery in Princeton at the gravesite, as you saw, Max Kasner, friend of ours from St. Matthew's Church here in Princeton, and a World War II veteran. But before I talk about Max and veterans, I'd like to just kind of take you on a tour of the neighborhood. Right over here we have Bert Goers. Bert and Betty, friends of ours, also from St. Matthew's. Betty was so always encouraging me to go into the ministry. Bert was I think it said in the Army also, as was Max. And over here we have Max Coville. Maybe some of you don't know him, but Max and Dorothy were neighbors of ours. They're mother and father of Judy Forstall, who passed away of cancer. And also, Max drove the hearse for Norberg's. Max was he was a fellow Navy man like I was. And then over here we have Pat Rod. You all know Pat Rod. Loving wife of Ralph Rod, who's still on 2 feet and moving around, owner of Diller Rod. But yeah, I'm not sure if Pat was in the military. I thought when I did her funeral it said she was a Army nurse, but I could be mistaken. But yeah, this is a nice neighborhood that Max is and his wife Janet here are buried at. Like I said, Max is a World War II vet. He was a pilot, and he flew over Germany and was shot down, and spent some time in a German POW camp, kind of like that Hogan's Heroes type of thing. But this was serious. This was serious. And if you know anything about World War II vets and most any vets who have been in combat, they don't readily share their stories. They keep them close and maybe share them with some of their closest buddies. And I know that Max used to share his stories with Carl Hulteen, another old member of St. Matthew's. They were good buddies, and Carl was in the Army also. I'm not sure where he's laid to rest. I'm sure it's around here somewheres. But yeah, so Max and Janet, the father and mother of Dave Kastner and Linda Berry, and I think there's one other brother that lives out of town. I'm not sure who he is. I'd recognize him if I seen him, but they're good friends of ours. And Max was a wonderful guy. He was a typical veteran, a typical World War II veteran. And what that means to me, at least what I've noticed from World War II veterans, is that they're law-abiding. They trust in authority. When the commanding officer, when that person who was in charge of the platoon or the company said something, they would do it. And they carried that throughout life. They were model citizens, and they were usually active in their communities. And oh, here comes a train. Can you hear it? So yeah, so that made them good citizens, and it's what made this country. People like that. But also, the World War II veterans, the people of that generation, especially veterans, were serious. You know, they kind of went along life at an even keel, and you know, they were serious about things. They weren't sarcastic, and yet they had a great sense of humor. And usually they just shared that with others of their age and of their veterans. I know Max was a man of few words, but he was also a man who could tell a joke, and he could laugh. These World War II vets, and Max was very loyal. You could count on them. You could depend on them to do things, to take care of things. Like I said, they were active in their communities, and they were always doing something for others. Give them a call, and they'll be there. And the last thing I'd like to say about these veterans here today that are buried, most of them, the World War II veterans, are gone. They're all in their 90s or more. Is that they had deep friendships. They kept in touch, and they were friends with those who they were in the military with. And that carried on into their life, that they had deep friendships in life. Like I said, Max Kastner and Carl Hulteen were good friends. They could joke, they could be together and have a good time. That's something that maybe we don't see as much of these days, as those deep, lasting friendships. So, all military people seem to have some of these traits in them, especially that deep friendship. But most of all, this World War II generation has those traits, and those who were in combat together with others. The friendships were tight because they had to be. They depended on each other. So not only do I salute those World War II veterans, but on this day I salute all veterans who have gone to their final resting place. And I know that I'm not in uniform, but I salute you. God's peace to you as you rest, and we'll see you all on the other side of war, in a time where we have no wars, when Jesus comes. God bless all you veterans.